calm before the storm. The civilian transport ship, Horizon's Dawn, glided silently through the darkness of space. Outside, stars streaked past in gentle trails of light as the ship moved steadily toward the neutral station, Kepler 7. Inside, the atmosphere was calm and ordinary. 300 humans were on board, each lost in their own thoughts. Some were reading data pads, others were asleep, and many simply gazed at the stars through the large observation windows. Among the passengers stood Jacob Miller, a man with gray hair and calm, thoughtful eyes. At 52, Jacob had spent most of his life negotiating treaties and building bridges with alien civilizations. He had met dozens of species, each unique in their customs and temperaments. This journey, however, was supposed to be routine. He was on his way to Kepler 7 for trade talks, hoping for a smooth, uneventful negotiation. A young engineer, Lisa Grant, moved toward him carrying her data pad. She was 28, with bright eyes and a restless energy that made her always seem ready for action. She had spent the trip checking the ship's systems, more out of habit than necessity. The Horizon's Dawn was a sturdy ship, well-maintained and piloted by a skilled crew. "Everything looks normal," Lisa said, her eyes scanning the screens. "We should arrive at Kepler 7 in about 3 hours. Jacob nodded, a small smile on his face. "Good. I hope these negotiations go smoothly." The Galactic Council representatives seem eager to expand trade routes through human space. In the back of the passenger deck, Peter Blake, a friendly and energetic man of 45, entertained a group of children with stories about Earth. Oceans, forests, mountains, things many of the children had never seen in person, came alive in his words. Their parents watched with quiet gratitude, happy that their children were captivated and distracted during the long journey. On the bridge, Captain Helen Morris reviewed navigation data with her crew. At 39, she was a confident and experienced leader, with short brown hair and a sharp, calculating mind. This was her third command, and she ran her ship efficiently. Her first officer, Lieutenant Danny Cooper, monitored sensors at the station nearby, his eyes scanning the data feeds carefully. "Captain," Danny said suddenly, his voice tight with unease, "I'm picking up something on long-range sensors. Multiple contacts. They just dropped out of faster-than-light travel about 2 million kilometers ahead." Helen leaned forward in her chair. "Identification." Danny's fingers flew over the console. His face grew pale. "Zeltharan signatures, Captain. It's a battle fleet, 12 warships, all combat class." The bridge went silent. Every officer knew the stories about the Zeltharan Empire. They were fierce, militant, and aggressive. Tensions between humans and the Zeltharans had been rising for months, but a battle fleet intercepting a civilian transport? That was unheard of. Helen took a deep breath. "Battle stations," she ordered quietly. "And get me a direct line to Earth Defense Command, now." Throughout the ship, warning lights began flashing. Passengers looked up, confused as the alert system activated. Jacob, sensing the rising tension, moved to the nearest intercom. "This is Jacob Miller. All passengers, please remain calm and stay in your seats. There may be a situation developing, but the crew is handling it." His voice, steady and calm, reassured many. Parents held their children close, and the general nervous energy began to ease slightly. Lisa quickly opened her data pad and accessed the ship's sensor feeds. Her stomach tightened as she processed the information. On the main screen of the bridge, a communication signal appeared. Helen nodded to her officer, and the image solidified. A Zeltharan general appeared, a tall, imposing figure with scaled skin and sharp, predatory features. His eyes were cold, and his expression was one of pure contempt. "I am General Carveth of the Zeltharan Imperial Fleet," he said, his voice harsh and grating. "Your vessel is now under the authority of the Zeltharan Empire. Shut down your engines and prepare to be boarded." Helen stood from her chair, keeping her tone professional. "General Carveth, this is a civilian transport on a diplomatic mission. We are protected under Galactic Council regulations. You have no authority to intercept us." Carveth's expression twisted into what might have been a smile. "The Galactic Council is weak. Their regulations mean nothing. Your species has been expanding too quickly, taking territory that should belong to the Zeltharan Empire. This ends now." "There are 300 civilians on this ship," Helen said firmly. "This action violates every treaty and law in the galaxy." "Your civilians are now hostages," Carveth replied. "Transmit a message to your Earth Defense Command. Tell them the Zeltharan Empire demands immediate evacuation of 3 human colonies in the border sectors. You have 1 hour to comply. If your government refuses, your ship and everyone on it will be destroyed." The screen went dark. Helen froze for a moment before turning to her crew. Get that message to Earth Defense Command immediately. Find out if any military ships are in range. Danny shook his head. The nearest human military vessel is 6 hours away at maximum speed, Captain. We're on our own. Jacob had heard everything through the ship's communication system. He remained calm, though his mind raced. He had dealt with difficult aliens before, but never a direct threat to civilians. This was a line no species could cross. Lisa sat beside him, gripping her data pad. What do we do? She asked quietly. Jacob looked around at the frightened faces. Children were crying, adults holding each other. We stay calm, he said softly. We cooperate with whatever they ask and trust that Earth will respond. The Zelthrans don't understand what they've done. Outside the ship, the Zelthran fleet moved into position, 12 warships surrounding the horizon's dawn like predators circling prey. On his flagship, General Carveth watched the human ship with satisfaction. His second-in-command, Commander Thex, approached. General, the boarding parties are ready. Shall I give the order? Carveth nodded. Board the ship. Round up all humans. Any resistance is to be met with force. These soft mammals need to learn fear. Minutes later, small assault craft detached from the Zelthran fleet, moving swiftly toward the civilian transport. Back on the ship, tension grew as passengers watched the lights and movements outside. Jacob Miller remained composed, speaking quietly to the frightened families. Lisa continued her secret monitoring, sending live feeds to Earth Defense Command, her fingers trembling slightly. In the midst of fear and uncertainty, one thing was clear: the calm of this journey was over. Humanity faced a test, and the world, and indeed the galaxy, was about to watch how they would respond. First contact. The stars outside the horizon's dawn were calm, but inside, tension filled every corner of the ship. Passengers clutched their seats or held their children close. The soft hum of the engines now felt like a fragile promise against the danger closing in. On the bridge, Captain Helen Morris watched the approaching Zelthran fleet with a steady gaze. 12 massive warships glimmered against the black of space, each bristling with weapons that could destroy the horizon's dawn in moments. The ship's crew moved with quiet efficiency, preparing for a situation no one had expected. Captain, Lieutenant Danny Cooper said, they're closing in fast. Boarding craft are detaching from the fleet. Helen's jaw tightened. Keep monitoring. Maintain shields at maximum. Ready boarding defenses, but we do not engage unless necessary. Her voice was calm, but the officers could sense the tension beneath it. Jacob Miller, standing near the observation window, kept his eyes on the stars. The diplomatic part of his mind raced through countless scenarios. Hostile species had been threats before, but threatening unarmed civilians was beyond anything he had faced. Lisa Grant approached him quietly, data pad in hand. Jacob, I've never seen anything like this. They're preparing to board us. Jacob nodded slowly. Then we make sure they understand who they're dealing with. Stay calm, keep sending those feeds to Earth. Let them see everything. It matters more than you think. Meanwhile, in the back of the passenger deck, Peter Blake worked to calm frightened children. His deep voice painted stories of courage and hope. Humans have faced dangers before, he said softly. And we always find a way through. You're safe with us. But no one could ignore the cold fear in the eyes of the Zelthran soldiers who were now appearing in assault craft, moving with military precision toward the civilian ship. On the main screen, a communication signal cut through the tension. General Carveth appeared again, his scaled features sharper in the holographic glow. His eyes were like ice. Civilian vessel, he said, voice grating. You are under the authority of the Zelthran Empire. Shut down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Helen Morris did not flinch. General Carveth, this is a civilian transport on a diplomatic mission. Your orders are illegal under Galactic Council regulations. You have no authority here. Carveth's tail flicked in irritation. The Galactic Council is weak. Your species expands too quickly. It is time the Zelthran Empire teaches humans respect. Your civilians will understand the consequences of defiance. Jacob Miller felt a chill. 300 humans, families, children, elderly, were under direct threat. Yet he did not panic. Calmness was a tool as powerful as any weapon. He moved to the nearest intercom. Attention all passengers, he said. Please remain seated. The crew is trained for every situation. Stay calm and follow instructions. We will get through this together. Lisa sent encrypted signals to Earth Defense Command, making sure every movement of the Zelthran soldiers was visible in real time. If humans were going to respond, Earth had to see everything as it happened. The first boarding craft attached to the Horizon's Dawn. Mechanical arms latched onto the hull, and airlocks hissed as the doors opened. From them, armored Zeltharan soldiers stepped aboard, their weapons glowing faintly in the ship's artificial light. Jacob Miller stood firmly as one soldier approached a group of civilians. The alien's eyes narrowed as it shoved a man aside. "That's enough," Jacob said calmly but firmly. "These are civilians. There is no need for violence." The soldier snarled and struck Jacob across the face. Blood trickled down his lip. He staggered but did not fall, his eyes steady on the alien. Around him, passengers gasped in horror. Lisa whispered, "Jacob?" He touched his lip, then straightened. "It's all right," he said quietly. "Don't give them a reason." Peter Blake helped him steady, murmuring reassurances to the terrified families. Children clung to their parents, frightened but watching adults remain calm. The Zeltharan soldiers began rounding up passengers, herding them toward the cargo holds at the rear of the ship. The cargo holds were cramped, designed for equipment rather than people. Cold metal walls pressed around the frightened civilians. Some sat in silence, others clutched each other tightly. Jacob Miller, sitting with his back against the wall, pressed a cloth to his lip. He scanned the crowd, offering quiet encouragement, whispering to parents and children alike. Lisa Grant crouched nearby, keeping her data pad active and hidden. She monitored Zeltharan communications, noting strange glitches and delays. Something unusual was happening. Signals she recognized as human cyber operations were affecting the alien systems. On Earth, Admiral Frank Carson watched the live feed with his team. Every gesture, every strike against Jacob, every moment of fear was visible to them. Carson's face was calm but his mind raced. Humans had been threatened in a way no species dared. Now it was time to respond. "Deploy Wraith Protocol," he ordered quietly. Every human military asset, from special operations teams to covert cyber units, would act. The goal was simple: save civilians and show the Zeltharan Empire why humans were not to be trifled with. Back on the ship, the Zeltharan soldiers were nervous. Computers acted strangely, weapon systems flickered, and communication delays made coordination difficult. Lisa noticed these anomalies and whispered to Jacob, "They don't know it yet, but we're inside their systems. Everything they do is visible to Earth." Jacob nodded, pressing a hand to his chest to calm his racing heart. "Hold on a little longer. We're not helpless. Humans always find a way." Outside, the stars moved steadily. Inside, tension built to a quiet roar. The calm of the journey was gone. What remained was the first contact between humans and the Zeltharan Empire, violent, tense, and dangerous. And yet, within the chaos, humanity's courage and resolve shone brighter than ever. The hostage situation. The cold metal walls of the cargo hold pressed around the civilians of the Horizon's Dawn. Families huddled together, clutching children close. The small space echoed with frightened whispers and the occasional sob. It was nothing like the open passenger deck where people had once read, laughed, and stared at the stars. Now the reality of the Zeltharan boarding had sunk in. Jacob Miller sat against a wall, a piece of cloth pressed to his swollen lip. Despite the pain, his eyes remained calm and alert. He moved quietly among the civilians, speaking in low, steady tones to soothe them. "We are safe here," he said. "The crew knows what they are doing. Stay calm. Stay together." Beside him, Peter Blake distracted the children with soft stories. He told them of heroic humans facing impossible odds and winning through courage and cleverness. "Humans always find a way," he said, his voice gentle but firm. The children clung to the tales, their fear easing just a little. Lisa Grant crouched in a corner, her data pad hidden under her jacket. She had hacked into the ship's secondary communication systems, unseen by the Zeltharans, and was transmitting live feeds of the boarding to Earth Defense Command. Every movement, every aggressive gesture by the aliens, was recorded. Every moment mattered. Meanwhile, Commander Thex, the Zeltharan officer leading the boarding, moved through the cargo hold with his weapon raised. His tall, scaled form loomed over the frightened civilians. He enjoyed watching them tremble, convinced that fear was proof of their weakness. An elderly man named George Hamilton moved too slowly for the alien's liking. Thex shoved him roughly and George stumbled, nearly falling. "That's enough," Jacob said, standing as tall as he could. His calm eyes met the alien's cold ones. "These are civilians. There is no need for violence." Thex hesitated, then struck Jacob across the face. Blood ran down his lip, but he did not fall. His face, though bruised, held a quiet, unshakable defiance. Around them, passengers watched in stunned silence, a mix of fear and awe. Peter Blake helped Jacob steady himself. Easy, he whispered. Don't give them a reason. The Zelthrans continued herding passengers toward the rear of the ship, where the cargo holds waited. Families were forced into tight rows, the cold metal walls amplifying every whisper and sob. But Jacob moved through the crowd, offering encouragement, helping anyone who stumbled. Lisa's fingers flew across her data pad. She accessed the ship's systems, monitoring the Zelthran soldiers and transmitting every moment to Earth. Earth is watching, she whispered to Jacob. They see everything. They know exactly what's happening here. Jacob nodded. Good. Keep watching. Stay calm. We're not helpless. Outside the horizon's dawn, the Zelthran fleet maintained a tight formation around the ship. On his flagship, General Carveth watched the boarding unfold. He paced angrily, tail lashing, satisfied at first by the humans' apparent fear. They will learn respect, he said, his voice low and grating. These soft mammals need to know their place. Yet something unusual was happening. The ship's systems behaved oddly. Sensors flickered. Weapons readings were delayed. General Carveth frowned, noticing glitches he could not explain. Back inside the cargo hold, Lisa detected the anomalies immediately. Jacob, something's happening, she said quietly. The Zelthran systems, they're acting strange. I think Earth is inside their network. Jacob's eyes widened slightly, but his expression remained calm. Then we just need to hold on a little longer, he said. Humans always find a way. This is no different. On Atlas Prime, Admiral Frank Carson and his team were watching the live feeds from Lisa. The footage of Commander Thex striking Jacob Miller played on every screen. Carson's face was calm but sharp. Good, he said quietly. Let them see. Let the Zelthrans know the cost of threatening civilians. Earth Defense Command began implementing Wraith Protocol. Every Special Operations Team, Cyber Warfare Unit, and Covert Asset prepared to act. Their mission: rescue civilians without harming a single one. Carson knew this would show the Zelthrans exactly why humans were not to be trifled with. Meanwhile, the Zelthran soldiers aboard the ship grew nervous. Their weapons systems flickered. Their communications lagged. Something was interfering with their normal operations. Lisa grinned slightly as she whispered, "It's working, we're controlling the system undetected." Jacob moved quietly among the passengers, whispering words of encouragement. Stay strong. Stay calm. Humanity is not helpless. Peter Blake continued to entertain the children, weaving simple games and stories of hope. Even in the freezing, cramped cargo hold, a sense of resilience began to grow. Humans were afraid, yes, but they were not broken. Outside the ship, General Carveth paced, growing more agitated. His boarding soldiers reported unusual readings, strange delays, and unresponsive systems. Explain this, he demanded. Sir, one officer replied nervously, the humans, we can't trace it. Systems are acting independently. Carveth's anger flared. He had planned this operation meticulously, confident that humans were weak. And yet, here they were, calm, organized, and quietly defying him. Jacob, Peter, and Lisa continued their work. Families whispered reassurances to one another. The children clung to Peter's stories, inspired by tales of human courage. And Lisa's hidden transmissions ensured that Earth was aware of every moment, preparing the galaxy for what was coming. The calm of the journey was gone, replaced by fear, tension, and uncertainty. Yet amid the chaos, humanity's true strength, resilience, courage, and cleverness, was beginning to shine. The Zelthran soldiers had not yet realized it, but they were no longer fully in control. The humans inside the horizon's dawn were not just passengers, they were a force that refused to be intimidated. And Earth was watching. In the cargo hold, Jacob whispered to a mother and her child, "We will get through this. We always do." Outside, the stars moved steadily. Inside, a quiet storm of courage and hope was rising, ready to face the greatest threat the passengers had ever known. Human strategy. On Atlas Prime, the command center of Earth defense, silence filled the room. The large display showed the live feed from the horizon's dawn. Every movement of the Zelthran boarding team, every frightened civilian, and every moment of Jacob Miller's calm defiance was visible to Admiral Frank Carson and his staff. Carson's steel-gray eyes scanned the data. He was 55, a veteran of countless crises, and every decision he made now would determine the fate of 300 human civilians. His second-in-command, Captain Nicole Ward, stood at his side. At 38, she was precise, sharp, and fully aware of the stakes. Carson's voice was low and measured. They've crossed a line. They threaten civilians. Now it's time to show them the cost. Sir, Nicole asked quietly, the Wraith Protocol? Carson nodded. Activate it. All special operations teams, cyber units, and covert assets. Deploy immediately. Our goal: rescue civilians without harming a single one. Let them understand human strength and discipline. Every specialist in the room sprang into action. Screens lit up with detailed maps of Zelthran installations. Fast attack ships prepared for launch from hidden bases. Cyber warfare units began infiltrating the Zelthran battle fleet's networks. Every move was coordinated, precise, and quiet. Back on the horizon's dawn, the civilians remained unaware of the vast human network coming to their aid. Jacob moved among them, still calm, still offering words of reassurance. Stay together. Stay calm. Help is coming. Lisa Grant kept her data pad active, monitoring the alien systems. The strange glitches and delays she had noticed before were growing. Jacob. Earth is in their network, she whispered. We're controlling their systems undetected. Every move they make, every command they issue, they don't know it, but we see it. Jacob nodded. Good. Just keep watching. The moment they try something, we'll be ready. In the depths of space, the first phase of the human response began. Small, agile teams infiltrated Zelthran military bases on the border sectors. They moved like ghosts, slipping past defenses, disabling weapon systems, and quietly securing civilians. Not a single life was lost. Not a single weapon fired. General Carveth, aboard his flagship, noticed something was wrong. Reports flooded in. Bases were going silent, systems were being disabled, and yet no humans were attacking. His face twisted in confusion and anger. What is happening? He roared. They're infiltrating our bases, sir, his officer stammered. But they're not harming anyone. They're extracting civilians and keeping them safe. Carveth's tail lashed violently. Impossible. They should be begging, panicking. This is not how prey behaves. On Atlas Prime, Carson watched every move. Status? He asked the cyber warfare team. We're fully in, sir, Kelly Price, the lead cyber specialist, replied. Weapons systems offline, shields down, navigation under our control. From their perspective, everything appears normal. They don't know we're inside yet. Carson nodded slowly. Perfect. Maintain silence. Prepare for extraction. No errors. Remember, every civilian must remain unharmed. Back on the horizon's dawn, Jacob noticed the alien soldiers acting oddly. They hesitated before giving orders, glanced nervously at their devices, and murmured in confusion. Lisa leaned closer to Jacob, whispering, It's working. Systems are being controlled remotely. The aliens don't know it yet. The tension inside the cargo hold remained high, but the knowledge that humans were quietly taking control elsewhere gave Jacob a quiet confidence. We've faced worse, he whispered. Humanity always finds a way. Peter Blake continued to distract the children with stories of courage. He told them of humans overcoming impossible odds through cleverness and teamwork. The children listened with wide eyes, clinging to his words, feeling safe even in the cold, cramped space. Commander Thex, leading the boarding party, grew increasingly frustrated. Sir, the systems, they are not responding. Communications are delayed. Our plans are failing, he reported nervously. Carveth bellowed. Explain it. I want those humans to fear us. His officers shook their heads. They had never faced a species that could strike without violence, that could manipulate systems silently, and that could outsmart them at every turn. Humans were proving a threat far greater than Carveth had imagined. As Earth's cyber teams continued their work, fast attack ships launched from hidden human bases, quickly neutralizing threats on the outskirts of Zelthran space. Covert teams extracted civilians from border colonies, moving them to safe zones before the aliens could respond. Every move was precise, efficient, and non-lethal. On the horizon's dawn, Lisa watched the alien soldiers grow more uneasy. They're panicking, she whispered. Their systems are failing and they don't know why. The humans are inside. Jacob smiled faintly despite his bruised lip. Good. Let them realize their mistake. Stay calm. We're about to show them what humanity is capable of. The Zelthran soldiers, once confident, now looked around nervously. They had expected terrified, helpless civilians, but instead they found calm, organized humans. And behind the scenes, humans were dismantling their control, quietly turning the tide. On Atlas Prime, Carson leaned back, watching the data feeds. Keep it up, he said. They will understand soon enough. This is more than a rescue, it's a lesson. Humans do not threaten lightly, and they do not cower under intimidation. Every move, every calculation, every silent strike of the human forces was proving the same truth. Threaten human civilians and humanity responds, not with mindless aggression, but with precision, strategy, and unyielding courage. And far away, General Karvatha's anger grew. He had underestimated humans. He had assumed fear would rule their hearts. But humans were calm, methodical, and clever. They were proving that threats to human civilians were not to be taken lightly. Inside the cargo hold, Jacob moved among the frightened passengers once more. "Help is coming," he said quietly, placing a reassuring hand on a mother's shoulder. "We will get through this. Trust humanity. We always find a way." And outside in the dark reaches of space, the stars continued to shine. But among the humans and aliens, a silent war had begun, one of courage, strategy, and honor. Humanity was not waiting for the battle to come. They were creating it, and they would not fail. The tide turns. Aboard the Horizon's Dawn, the atmosphere in the cargo hold remained tense, but something had changed. The Zelthran soldiers were no longer moving with complete confidence. Their faces flickered with confusion, and their orders seemed hesitant. Jacob Miller noticed it immediately. He moved among the civilians, speaking quietly, "Stay calm. Help is closer than you think. The humans are in control now. Just hold on." Lisa Grant, hidden with her data pad, observed the soldiers' systems in real time. "Jacob, they're panicking. Every weapon, every system, even their shields, they're responding to commands from Earth. They don't know it yet, but we have them." Jacob allowed himself a small smile. The tide was turning. Humans, quiet and precise, were taking control without firing a single shot. Every moment of calm courage inside the ship had bought them time for the humans outside to act. Outside, Earth's special operations teams moved with ghost-like precision. Border colonies that had been under Zelthran control were being silently liberated. Civilians were extracted safely and weapons systems disabled. Not a single life was lost. Each operation was quick, silent, and surgical. On Atlas Prime, Admiral Frank Carson watched the reports with satisfaction. "Status?" he asked his team. "All targets secured, sir. Civilians are safe, and no Zelthran military personnel have been harmed unnecessarily," Kelly Price reported. "Our cyber units have full control of their fleet systems. The Horizon's Dawn is no longer at risk of damage." Carson nodded. "Good. Let them see the consequences of underestimating humanity. The lesson is clear. Attack our civilians and we respond with precision and strength." Back on the Horizon's Dawn, the Zelthran soldiers began to notice their systems failing. Their weapons locked up, their shields flickered, and their communication delays grew longer. Commander Thex growled in frustration, turning to his men. "Something is wrong," he shouted. "Weapons offline. Communications delayed. What is happening?" Jacob Miller observed the scene quietly. The aliens were confused, their confidence fading, their aggression losing control. Peter Blake whispered to a group of children, "See? Humans always find a way. Courage and cleverness beat fear every time." Lisa tapped her data pad rapidly, monitoring every movement. "Jacob, they're completely in our control now. Their fleet systems, their weapons, their shields, they're responding to Earth commands. They don't know who's controlling them." Jacob nodded, his calm presence steadying the civilians around him. "Good. Hold on. The rescue is about to begin." Inside the cargo hold, fear slowly began to turn into hope. Mothers whispered reassurances to their children. Elderly passengers found strength in Jacob and Peter's calm words. Even the Zelthran soldiers were beginning to falter, unsure how to proceed as their systems betrayed them. Outside, human teams completed the first phase of Wraith Protocol. The Zelthran military bases were silent, all weapons neutralized. Civilians from each base were safely moved to secure locations, all accounted for and unharmed. Earth's military had demonstrated power, precision, and restraint, traits that were unfamiliar to the Zelthrans. On his flagship, General Karvatha's anger was boiling. His carefully orchestrated plan had failed. His fleet, his soldiers, even his control over the Horizon's Dawn, were slipping through his fingers. He stared at the main display, seeing reports of civilians being rescued, weapons neutralized, and systems completely under human control. "How?" he whispered, disbelief shaking his voice. "How is this possible?" Commander Thex stepped forward cautiously. "Sir, they have control over our systems. They are inside our networks. Every movement we make is seen, monitored, and blocked." Karvatha's scaled face twisted with rage. "Impossible. Humans are soft mammals. They cannot be this precise, this coordinated. Meanwhile, on the horizon's dawn, the tide continued to turn. Soldiers who had once struck Jacob now hesitated. Weapons froze mid-air. Communications were delayed. Even the airlock doors of the ship responded unpredictably. The humans inside were safe, the aliens confused. Jacob moved calmly through the cargo hold, checking on civilians. The humans outside are taking control. Every moment of calm courage you've shown has bought us time. Soon we'll be free. Peter Blake whispered to the children, "Do you see that? That's courage. That's humans. Always clever, always calm under pressure." Lisa tapped her data pad, her eyes wide with excitement. "Jacob, it's working perfectly. The aliens can't touch us. Earth has full control. Soon they'll have no choice but to release the hostages." As the humans executed the final stages of Wraith Protocol, the Zelthran soldiers began to lower their weapons. Confusion replaced aggression. Panic replaced confidence. And for the first time, General Carveth realized he had misjudged humanity. On Atlas Prime, Admiral Carson allowed himself a small smile. Good. Let them understand. Humans are not to be threatened. Never again. Aboard the Horizon's Dawn, Jacob looked out at the stars. He pressed a hand to his lip, now swollen and bruised, and spoke softly to the civilians around him. "The storm is passing. Humanity always finds a way. We are strong. We are clever. And we are not afraid to protect each other." Peter Blake smiled at the children, who now clung to him not out of fear but in awe. "You see, kids? Courage isn't about fighting. It's about standing firm, staying calm, and trusting in your people." Lisa whispered to Jacob, "Soon, it will all be over. They have no way to resist." Jacob nodded. "Yes. Soon the civilians will be safe. And the Zelthrans will understand a very simple truth. Humans do not tolerate threats to their own." Outside, the stars moved quietly. The tension that had gripped the ship for hours began to ease. A quiet sense of victory settled over the passengers. They were still safe, still alive, and soon they would be free. The first phase of humanity's response was complete. The Zelthrans had been outsmarted, outmaneuvered, and overpowered, not with brute force but with strategy, intelligence, and unwavering courage. And in the cold, dark void of space, one message had been made perfectly clear. Threaten human civilians and humanity will respond, with precision, honor, and unstoppable determination. Aftermath and lesson. The Horizon's Dawn sailed smoothly now through the dark expanse of space. The passengers, once frightened and tense, were finally safe. Families huddled together, children laughed quietly, and the elderly smiled with relief. The fear that had gripped them for hours was replaced with calm and gratitude. Jacob Miller walked through the ship one last time, checking on everyone. His bruised face still bore the marks of the Zelthran strike, but his calm eyes reflected quiet pride. Mothers whispered thanks, children waved shyly, and even Peter Blake allowed himself a small smile. Lisa Grant sat nearby, her data pad finally shut down. "It's done," she said softly. "All transmissions confirmed. Earth had control the entire time. The Zelthrans couldn't interfere. We were always one step ahead." Jacob nodded. "Good. Every moment of courage, every calm decision, every ounce of patience, it all mattered. Humanity protects its own. We never give up." Back on Atlas Prime, Admiral Frank Carson received the final reports. Every civilian accounted for. Every military target neutralized. Every operation executed perfectly. No life lost. The humans had not only rescued their own, they had demonstrated strength, intelligence, and restraint on a scale the Zelthrans could not understand. Carson leaned back in his chair, speaking to his second-in-command, Captain Nicole Ward. "Let this be a lesson. Never again will anyone threaten human civilians and go unpunished. Not with brute force, not with threats, but with precision, courage, and strategy." Nicole nodded. "It's a victory, sir. A complete one. The Zelthrans will not forget it." Far away, aboard his flagship, General Carveth sat in silence, his scaled features twisted with anger and disbelief. His carefully orchestrated plan had failed. His boarding parties had been neutralized without harm, his weapons disabled without a shot fired, and his civilians rescued by humans who had shown restraint and intelligence. "Sir, the humans," Commander Thek spoke hesitantly, "they didn't fight us with weapons. They used strategy, patience, and control. Their civilians are safe, our systems are crippled, and we are humiliated." Carveth's tail lashed the floor in frustration. "Impossible," he hissed. "Soft mammals, they cannot be this clever, this organized. The Zeltharan soldiers on the Horizon's Dawn were escorted back to their ships, confused and shaken. They had expected fear, obedience, and panic from the humans. Instead, they had found calm, courage, and intelligence at every turn. The lesson was clear: humanity could not be intimidated. Back aboard the Horizon's Dawn, Jacob Miller addressed the passengers one final time. "You have shown courage under pressure. You have stayed calm when faced with fear. Humanity always finds a way, not through anger, not through recklessness, but through patience, cleverness, and unity." Peter Blake joined him, smiling at the children. "You've all seen what it means to be human. To stand together, to protect each other, and to never give up. That's the real strength." Lisa Grant added, "And we've shown that intelligence and preparation are as powerful as any weapon. We've protected lives and sent a message that no threat to human civilians goes unanswered." The passengers cheered quietly, some clapping, others hugging each other. The lesson was clear. Humans were not only capable of courage, they were capable of mercy, intelligence, and overwhelming strategy when defending their own. On Atlas Prime, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from dozens of species gathered to discuss the events at Kepler-7. The Zeltharan ambassador, General Vortex, spoke angrily, but the evidence of human precision and restraint was overwhelming. Ambassador Claire Stevens stood firmly for humanity. The Zeltharan Empire attempted to seize a civilian transport. They threatened 300 innocents. Humanity responded, not with unnecessary violence, but with decisive and intelligent action. Every life was preserved. Every operation precise. The Zeltharans have learned a critical lesson: humans protect their own, always. The chamber erupted in discussion. Several alien representatives who had suffered under Zeltharan aggression nodded in approval. Even the usually critical Elder Morn of the Vendari species spoke softly. Humanity has demonstrated remarkable discipline. They could have destroyed the Zeltharan fleet. Instead, they rescued civilians. This is the mark of a mature species. General Carveth seethed aboard his flagship. The humiliation of being outsmarted and outmaneuvered by humans burned deeply. The Zeltharan Empire had underestimated humanity, and the cost was now clear to all. Back on the Horizon's Dawn, Jacob Miller and Peter Blake walked the deck one last time. Families waved, children laughed, and the crew smiled with relief. The calm after the storm was profound, and yet the lesson lingered in every mind aboard the ship. Jacob spoke quietly to Peter: "We've survived. We've protected our people. And we've shown the galaxy who humans really are. Courage, intelligence, patience, that is humanity's strength." Peter nodded, his eyes soft. "And mercy. We protected lives when we could have fought. That makes us strong too." Lisa Grant joined them, looking out the viewport at the stars. "They'll remember this. Not because we fought with weapons, but because we fought with brains, courage, and hearts. That's something the Zeltharans won't forget." Jacob smiled, touching his still bruised lip. "No, they won't. And the rest of the galaxy will remember too. Humanity protects its own. Always." As the Horizon's Dawn continued toward Kepler-7, the passengers began to relax, sharing quiet conversations, laughter, and tears of relief. The stars stretched endlessly outside, indifferent yet witness to the events that had unfolded. Humanity had won, not with brute force, not with reckless fury, but with courage, intelligence, strategy, and compassion. And in the silence of space, one truth became undeniable: never threaten human civilians. Humanity always finds a way. Humanity always protects its own. And humanity never forgets. Aftermath and lesson. The Horizon's Dawn sailed smoothly now through the dark expanse of space. The passengers, once frightened and tense, were finally safe. Families huddled together, children laughed quietly, and the elderly smiled with relief. The fear that had gripped them for hours was replaced with calm and gratitude. Jacob Miller walked through the ship one last time, checking on everyone. His bruised face still bore the marks of the Zeltharan strike, but his calm eyes reflected quiet pride. Mothers whispered thanks, children waved shyly, and even Peter Blake allowed himself a small smile. Lisa Grant sat nearby, her data pad finally shut down. "It's done," she said softly. "All transmissions confirmed. Earth had control the entire time. The Zeltharans couldn't interfere. We were always one step ahead." Jacob nodded. "Good." Every moment of courage, every calm decision, every ounce of patience, it all mattered. Humanity protects its own. We never give up. Back on Atlas Prime, Admiral Frank Carson received the final reports. Every civilian accounted for. Every military target neutralized. Every operation executed perfectly. No life lost. The humans had not only rescued their own, they had demonstrated strength, intelligence, and restraint on a scale the Zelthrans could not understand. Carson leaned back in his chair, speaking to his second-in-command, Captain Nicole Ward. Let this be a lesson. Never again will anyone threaten human civilians and go unpunished. Not with brute force, not with threats, but with precision, courage, and strategy. Nicole nodded. It's a victory, sir. A complete one. The Zelthrans will not forget it. Far away, aboard his flagship, General Carveth sat in silence, his scaled features twisted with anger and disbelief. His carefully orchestrated plan had failed. His boarding parties had been neutralized without harm, his weapons disabled without a shot fired, and his civilians rescued by humans who had shown restraint and intelligence. Sir, the humans, Commander Thek spoke hesitantly. They didn't fight us with weapons. They used strategy, patience, and control. Their civilians are safe, our systems are crippled, and we are humiliated. Carveth's tail lashed the floor in frustration. Impossible, he hissed. Soft mammals, they cannot be this clever, this organized. The Zelthran soldiers on the Horizon's Dawn were escorted back to their ships, confused and shaken. They had expected fear, obedience, and panic from the humans. Instead, they had found calm, courage, and intelligence at every turn. The lesson was clear. Humanity could not be intimidated. Back aboard the Horizon's Dawn, Jacob Miller addressed the passengers one final time. You have shown courage under pressure. You have stayed calm when faced with fear. Humanity always finds a way, not through anger, not through recklessness, but through patience, cleverness, and unity. Peter Blake joined him, smiling at the children. You've all seen what it means to be human. To stand together, to protect each other, and to never give up. That's the real strength. Lisa Grant added, and we've shown that intelligence and preparation are as powerful as any weapon. We've protected lives and sent a message that no threat to human civilians goes unanswered. The passengers cheered quietly, some clapping, others hugging each other. The lesson was clear. Humans were not only capable of courage, they were capable of mercy, intelligence, and overwhelming strategy when defending their own. On Atlas Prime, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from dozens of species gathered to discuss the events at Kepler-7. The Zelthran ambassador, General Vortex, spoke angrily, but the evidence of human precision and restraint was overwhelming. Ambassador Claire Stevens stood firmly for humanity. The Zelthran Empire attempted to seize a civilian transport. They threatened 300 innocents. Humanity responded, not with unnecessary violence, but with decisive and intelligent action. Every life was preserved. Every operation precise. The Zelthrans have learned a critical lesson. Humans protect their own, always. The chamber erupted in discussion. Several alien representatives who had suffered under Zelthran aggression nodded in approval. Even the usually critical Elder Morn of the Vendari species spoke softly. Humanity has demonstrated remarkable discipline. They could have destroyed the Zelthran fleet. Instead, they rescued civilians. This is the mark of a mature species. General Carveth seethed aboard his flagship. The humiliation of being outsmarted and outmaneuvered by humans burned deeply. The Zelthran Empire had underestimated humanity, and the cost was now clear to all. Back on the Horizon's Dawn, Jacob Miller and Peter Blake walked the deck one last time. Families waved, children laughed, and the crew smiled with relief. The calm after the storm was profound, and yet the lesson lingered in every mind aboard the ship. Jacob spoke quietly to Peter, "We've survived. We've protected our people. And we've shown the galaxy who humans really are. Courage, intelligence, patience, that is humanity's strength." Peter nodded, his eyes soft. "And mercy. We protected lives when we could have fought. That makes us strong too." Lisa Grant joined them, looking out the viewport at the stars. "They'll remember this. Not because we fought with weapons, but because we fought with brains, courage, and hearts. That's something the Zelthrans won't forget." Jacob smiled, touching his still bruised lip. "No, they won't. And the rest of the galaxy will remember too. Humanity protects its own. Always." As the Horizon's Dawn continued toward Kepler-7, the passengers began to relax, sharing quiet conversations, laughter, and tears of relief. The stars stretched endlessly outside, indifferent yet witness to the events that had unfolded. Humanity had won, not with brute force, not with reckless fury, but with courage, intelligence, strategy, and compassion. And in the silence of space, one truth became undeniable: never threaten human civilians. Humanity always finds a way. Humanity always protects its own. And humanity never forgets.